We thought the Shedeur Sanders draft saga was over. Slide to the 5th round, swallowed pride, a fresh start in Cleveland. But then, Cam Newton, never one to stay quiet, dropped a revelation so wild it sent shockwaves through the league. According to him, Sanders didn't just fall to the Browns. He actively turned down 3 teams in real time, flexing leverage no rookie quarterback should have. The Browns, the Ravens, even the Eagles. Newton claimed Sanders flat out refused their overtures. That revelation rewrote everything we thought we knew about draft night. Because if it's true, Sanders didn't tumble helplessly down the board. He steered his own fall, waiting for the right fit. And in doing so, he flipped the entire narrative from victim of circumstance to architect of destiny. Suddenly, the whispers about sliding draft stock don't sound like misfortune. They sound like strategy. Why would Sanders say no to the Ravens, a franchise built around Lamar Jackson's dynamism? Why not the Eagles, a playoff contender with stability in the front office? And why resist the Browns, who were desperate for fresh blood at quarterback? Newton's answer was blunt: power. Sanders didn't want to be buried behind established stars. He wanted a situation where he could step in, compete, and eventually lead without politics blocking his path. If true, that means Sanders was playing chess while everyone else played checkers. He wasn't just betting on his talent, he was betting on timing, ownership influence, and his ability to outshine anyone put in front of him. But it also paints a picture of a quarterback unafraid to burn bridges before even throwing an NFL pass. Teams don't forget rejection, and executives don't forgive draft night defiance. Newton's bombshell didn't just change how people saw Sanders. It raised uncomfortable questions for the league itself. How much power should rookies really have? How did a 5th-round pick wield leverage reserved for megastars? And most importantly, was Sanders a genius who controlled his destiny? Or a risk who might always put himself before the shield? Cam Newton's bombshell forced the NFL world to ask a question nobody thought they'd be asking about a 5th-round rookie. Was Shedeur Sanders a visionary or a gambler playing with fire? Draft leverage is usually a luxury reserved for the elite. The Peyton Mannings, the John Elways, but quarterbacks who could dictate their landing spot by simply refusing to play for certain franchises. But Sanders? He was supposed to be fighting just to prove he wasn't a name riding his father's shadow. And yet, if Newton's account is true, Sanders flipped the script entirely. The leverage argument is simple. By refusing Baltimore, Philadelphia, and even Cleveland at first, Sanders may have been betting on a situation where the runway was clear. He didn't want to sit for years behind Lamar Jackson, nor get lost in Philadelphia's depth chart with Jalen Hurts already cemented as the face of the franchise. Instead, he wanted a place where the fan base was starving for stability, where ownership was desperate for a story, and where the path to QB1 wasn't blocked by untouchable stars. That level of foresight is rare for rookies. It suggests Sanders wasn't just reacting to the draft, he was shaping it. But the risk side is brutal. Turning down teams with strong rosters and proven front offices carries consequences. Executives don't like being snubbed. Scouts don't like their work dismissed. And veterans in locker rooms don't easily embrace rookies who walk in with power plays before they've earned a single win. If Sanders truly rejected multiple franchises, then his margin for error in Cleveland shrinks to nothing. He has to succeed and fast. Otherwise, the narrative flips from savvy and strategic to arrogant and reckless. In the cutthroat world of the NFL, perception is everything. Sanders' boldness may eventually be praised as the move that launched his career, or it may linger as the miscalculation that branded him difficult before his story even began. That's the fine line between leverage and risk. One creates legends, The other creates cautionary tales. To understand just how shocking Cam Newton's revelation really is, you have to rewind the clock more than 40 years to one of the most infamous draft sagas in NFL history, John Elway in 1983. At the time, Elway was the crown jewel of the draft, the can't-miss prospect with the golden arm. But when the Baltimore Colts picked him number 1 overall, Elway simply said no. He used the leverage of his baseball career with the New York Yankees and the weight of his family's influence to force a trade to Denver. It was a moment that redefined draft power dynamics forever. Proof that even a rookie could rewrite the rules if he had enough guts and enough leverage. Now, Shedeur Sanders isn't John Elway. He wasn't drafted first overall. He wasn't sitting on a pro baseball contract as an escape hatch. But the echoes are undeniable. If Cam Newton's claims are true, Sanders essentially pulled a page straight out of the Elway playbook. He told teams with established quarterbacks, thanks, but no thanks, and maneuvered for a landing spot where the path to playing time and stardom was wide open. That's Elway-level audacity, even if it happened from the 5th round instead of the 1st. The parallel, though, exposes the risk even more clearly. Elway was considered bulletproof. He had the leverage because no one doubted his talent. Sanders, on the other hand, came into the league with doubters who already whispered that his fame outweighed his resume. For him to reject franchises in the draft wasn't just bold, it was dangerous. The second he stumbles, critics will paint him not as Elway 2.0, but as a spoiled rookie who tried to game the system before earning his stripes. But if Sanders succeeds, if he lights up the league from Cleveland, leading a cursed franchise into relevance, then the Elway parallel isn't just a comparison. It becomes validation. It proves that what seemed arrogant was actually visionary, that a young quarterback could rewrite his destiny before his first NFL start. At first glance, Cleveland doesn't look like the obvious choice. This is a franchise with decades of quarterback scars, a revolving door at the most important position, and an ownership group that's made more headlines for dysfunction than for championships. If Shedeur Sanders truly had the power to steer his career, why would he plant his flag in the middle of one of the NFL's most chaotic franchises? The answer lies in opportunity. For all their flaws, the Browns presented something no other team on that draft board could: a realistic path to the field. Baltimore had Lamar Jackson, an MVP entrenched as the face of the franchise. Philadelphia had Jalen Hurts, a Super Bowl starter locked in as the long-term answer. In those places, Sanders would have been holding a clipboard for years. In Cleveland, however, the quarterback depth chart was already shaky. Deshaun Watson's injuries and controversies left the team scrambling. Joe Flacco was pushing 40, and Kenny Pickett was a reclamation project at best. Sanders could see it. Sooner or later, the Browns were going to need someone new to step in. Beyond opportunity, there was also branding. Cleveland may not have the glitz of Los Angeles or the history of Dallas, but it has something uniquely valuable: a starving fan base desperate for a savior. If Sanders succeeded in a city that had waited decades for a franchise quarterback, the payoff would be historic. He wouldn't just be another good player in a crowded market. He'd be the face of a resurrection. The man who changed the Browns' story forever. And then there's the ownership factor. Jimmy Haslam is known for chasing headlines and betting big on splash moves. For a player like Sanders, whose name already carried weight, Cleveland offered not just playing time, but a spotlight. The Browns weren't just willing to draft him. They were willing to market him, to build momentum around him, to give him the platform that could amplify both his game and his brand. So why Cleveland? Because where others saw dysfunction, Sanders saw destiny, the chance to not just join a team, but to rewrite the legacy of an entire franchise. Every draft decision is a gamble, But this one feels like roulette with the stakes cranked to max volume. By choosing Cleveland, Shedeur Sanders didn't just pick a team. He picked chaos. And chaos can either make legends or bury careers. The question now is simple. Does this bold move pay off, or does it backfire in spectacular fashion? If it pays off, the story practically writes itself. Sanders becomes the rookie who turned dysfunction into destiny. He steps into the mess, silences the doubters, and rewrites Cleveland's tortured quarterback history in real time. Think about it. A franchise known for heartbreak suddenly finds a quarterback who thrives under pressure, unites a divided locker room, and brings swagger back to the dog pound. The city would crown him overnight. Jersey sales skyrocket. National media shifts from clowning the Browns to praising them as the team that finally got it right. Sanders, the overlooked fifth rounder, would go down as the savior who flipped decades of failure into one of the greatest redemption arcs in sports. But if it backfires, that's the nightmare scenario. Cleveland isn't exactly a forgiving place for quarterbacks. This is the city that chews up rookies, burns through veterans, and has turned QB carousel into a running joke across the league. If Sanders falters, if his poise cracks under the relentless pressure, if his arm talent gets overshadowed by turnovers, if the height proves heavier than his shoulders can carry, he won't just be another bust. He'll be the latest chapter in a curse fans have come to know too well. And worse, the narrative won't stop at football. Critics will point to the jewelry, the NIL money, the viral clips, and say they saw it coming all along. The brand will overshadow the ball. So this is the razor's edge. Either Sanders is remembered as the quarterback who finally lit the fuse in Cleveland, or the one who gambled big and lost bigger. And that's what makes this moment so compelling. The future isn't written yet. But one thing is certain. Whatever happens next, nobody will forget the risk Sanders took. Shedeur Sanders' gamble in Cleveland isn't just about one player or one team. It's sending shockwaves across the entire NFL. Because when a fifth-round rookie quarterback wields this kind of leverage and generates this level of attention, it changes the game for everyone else, whether they like it or not. Start with ownership. Sanders has exposed a truth the league usually keeps behind the curtain. Image matters as much as production. By choosing Cleveland and by the NFL leaning into the spectacle, Sanders proved that branding can shape opportunity. Other young stars, especially those coming out of big-time programs with NIL followings, are watching closely. They see a roadmap for how to control their careers before they even take their first professional snap. That's power the league isn't used to giving up. Now think about the draft. For decades, the system was designed to strip players of leverage. You go where you're picked. Period. But Sanders' maneuver echoes Elway and Eli Manning before him. If he succeeds, don't be surprised if more rookies, especially quarterbacks, start dictating terms. They may not all have the Sanders name, but they'll see proof that you don't have to accept just any situation. The draft, once considered untouchable, could start to feel negotiable. Then there's the cultural impact. Sanders has become a lightning rod in the QB conversation, forcing the league to confront uncomfortable questions about how black quarterbacks are scouted, drafted, and supported. His journey highlights both the skepticism he faced and the systemic obstacles still lingering. If he thrives, it won't just vindicate him. It will pressure teams to rethink how they evaluate talent that doesn't fit their traditional mold. Finally, there's the business side. The jersey sales, the broadcast shifts, the fan engagement, all of it proves that players who bring personality and storylines are worth their weight in gold. The NFL thrives on stars, and Sanders is showing that a rookie can move the needle like a veteran MVP. The ripple effect is clear. Sanders isn't just shaping his future, he's shaping the league's. And every owner, GM, coach, and rookie quarterback is now forced to adjust to this new reality. For Shedeur Sanders, every snap now carries more than yardage. It carries the weight of a franchise, a fan base, and an entire league that's turned him into a storyline bigger than football. And that weight, it's both a crown and a burden. On one side, the expectations feel almost mythical. Cleveland hasn't had a true franchise quarterback in decades, and suddenly, a fifth-round pick has been framed as the chosen one. The fans want fireworks, ownership wants marketability, and the NFL itself wants Sanders to be the next poster child. That's three different masters to please, and in this league, trying to satisfy everyone is usually the fastest way to fail. Sanders also carries something heavier than football pressure: legacy. He's not just another rookie. He's Deion Sanders' son, a name that comes with its own gravity. Every decision, every performance, every mistake gets amplified because of who his father is. Critics don't just judge him as Shedeur. They judge him as Prime's kid, the quarterback who was supposed to prove that pedigree plus talent equals destiny. That's an impossible bar. Yet, it's the one he walks under every day. The spotlight also comes with danger. A rough start, a costly turnover, or even a single poor performance can flip the narrative overnight. The same media that celebrates him now will dissect his flaws in slow motion if he stumbles. And in Cleveland, where quarterback patience is thinner than paper, he won't get the luxury of time. Every mistake risks being labeled proof that the hype was misplaced. But here's the flip side. If anyone's built for this, it's Sanders. His calm under pressure, his ability to tune out noise, his history of thriving in chaos, all of it suggests he can carry this weight without breaking. The expectation might crush some, but for Sanders, it could be the very thing that sharpens him into the star his supporters believe he already is. The weight of expectation is immense, but so is the opportunity. Sanders doesn't just have a chance to meet the moment. He has a chance to redefine what expectation means in the NFL. For the Cleveland Browns, Shedeur Sanders isn't just a rookie quarterback. He's the fork in the road that could decide the franchise's future for the next decade. Every move, every decision surrounding him now feels less like strategy and more like destiny. On one path, Sanders becomes the star ownership envisions, the player who unites a fractured locker room, energizes the fan base, and finally breaks a curse that has haunted Cleveland since the franchise returned in 1999. If he thrives, the Browns don't just win games, they reset their identity. Suddenly, Cleveland transforms from the league's cautionary tale into one of its great redemption stories, powered by a quarterback who wasn't supposed to be theirs, yet became theirs in every sense. But the other path is darker. If Sanders stumbles, if the hype unravels under the weight of expectation, the Browns risk falling back into the very dysfunction they were desperate to escape. His struggles would validate critics who said the pick was a mistake, embolden Gabriel loyalists, and deepen the divides already visible in the locker room. Worse, it would make Cleveland look like a franchise that prioritized marketing and buzz over building steady, sustainable football. For a fan base already scarred by years of false hope, that kind of collapse wouldn't just hurt. It would confirm every fear they've carried. And then there's Kevin Stefanski. For him, Sanders' performance may well decide his career. If Sanders shines, Stefanski can frame himself as the steady hand who managed chaos and helped shape a star. If Sanders fails, the narrative flips, painting him as the coach who mishandled his quarterbacks and lost his locker room. Either way, his legacy in Cleveland is now bound to Sanders' trajectory. That's why this isn't just a quarterback controversy. It's an organizational identity crisis. Cleveland has arrived at its crossroads, forced to choose between discipline and charisma, patience and urgency, stability, and spectacle. The Browns don't just need Sanders to play well. They need him to become the anchor that keeps them from sliding back into the abyss. The Shedeur Sanders saga stopped being a Cleveland story weeks ago. It's now a league-wide case study, and every general manager, owner, and head coach across the NFL is watching it unfold with equal parts fascination and fear. For rival front offices, Sanders represents a test case in the age of branding and player empowerment. He isn't just another rookie trying to earn reps. He's a walking headline, a marketing machine, and a quarterback with enough cultural sway to force the league office to intervene. That kind of leverage in the hands of a fifth-round pick is unprecedented, and executives are quietly asking themselves, if this is what Sanders can do now, what happens when other young stars realize the same power? Coaches around the league are watching Kevin Stefanski's every move too. For them, this isn't just about Sanders. It's about the precedent. If a coach benches or disciplines a young star, will ownership and the league override that decision to protect the brand? That's the nightmare scenario for football lifers who believe authority in the locker room is sacred. Sanders' rise has already blurred the line between coaching and marketing, and the rest of the NFL knows whatever happens in Cleveland could reshape the balance of power everywhere. Players are watching as well, and not just quarterbacks. Sanders' situation raises questions about favoritism, fairness, and how much a player's name or following can accelerate or stall their opportunities. Veterans who grinded their way up the depth chart see Sanders' spotlight and wonder if the rules have changed. Rookies around the league are paying attention too, asking if this is the new standard. Perform and build a brand, or risk being left behind. And then there's the commissioner's office. Roger Goodell's involvement has made it clear. This isn't just a team issue. The league itself has tied its reputation to Sanders' success. Every snap he takes, every headline that drops is now a reflection of the NFL's ability to manage talent, image, and integrity all at once. Cleveland may be at its crossroads, but the entire league is learning from the outcome. Whatever happens next won't stay in Ohio. It will echo across every NFL franchise.